Hey, good evening, everyone. Ankit here, and I'm here with my buddy Shane. We're here to discuss something today, kind of related to, I guess, respecting the elderly, but I wanted to do it from a cultural perspective because throughout various cultures, they have a different way of showing respect to elders. For example, in the States, we have a certain way, and throughout various other cultures across the world, it's similar in a lot of ways, but also different. So that's something we're going to be discussing here today. And now, obviously, we can't, you know, get into every single race and culture that exists on the planet. That is pretty much impossible. But I kind of wanted to pick a few and kind of discuss how the elderly people are treated in these various cultures. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but nonetheless, I just wanted to give a quick overview. I'm going to start with the two cultures that I'm most closely associated with. That would be the Indian culture, East Indian culture, which I'm a part of, and then also the Filipino culture, of which my wife is a part of, and obviously marrying into it. I'm also a huge part of the Filipino culture now. In India, when we see someone that's not just even elderly, just someone that's older than us, it could even be a big brother, a parent, grandparent, whoever. Generally, we will, as a sign of respect, we will touch their feet. That's common in Indian culture. And so if you're ever here and you see an Indian person with their parents, you may notice that they touch their feet, and that's very common in our culture as as a way of showing respect to our elderly, or just in general somebody older than us. One thing I do want to mention before I continue. Sorry, I know I'm kind of scattered in these videos. I don't really have a script. I just kind of start talking. So hey, maybe someday I'll have a script video, but usually I just kind of start talking. The one reason I wanted to make this video is, for example, a lot of people travel like I do, or they may marry into a different culture like I did. And I wanted to kind of make people become more mindful of different cultures. I wanted people to show more respect for other cultures, especially if you're going to be traveling, because when you're traveling, things are going to be different than when you're in the United States. People's customs, their way of life, the way they do things, the way they talk to people, the way they eat their food, the way what they do at night, what they do when they first wake up, how they spend their day. It's just different. Their laws are different, their morals are different, and it's really important to understand those, especially if you're going to become a world traveler or just understand other cultures in general. One thing we always expect from visitors from other countries who come to the United States is that they kind of follow our rule of law, our way of life. That's also important when you go abroad, overseas, to another culture. I've seen many American people overseas just basically act like complete idiots, even if they're not breaking the law in some sense. They're just acting like imbeciles and completely not showing any respect to the particular culture that they're in at that moment, and that's not right either. If we expect people to come to the United States to act accordingly, we need to also put that on ourselves. We need to hold ourselves accountable to do the same when we go into another country and another culture. So that's just my 2 cents, and that's why I really wanted to make this video. Um, in Filipino culture, they do a thing called mano, where they actually um, take a person that's elderly or just older than you, whether it's an older brother, um, an aunt, an uncle, parent, grandparent, whatever. They actually take their right hand and touch it to their forehead when they meet them, for the first time. Not that really the first time, but just in their initial meeting, whatever, on a particular day. It's unfortunate for my friend Shane, who I mentioned is a Filipino. He can't really do mono because he doesn't have any arms, and once he becomes elderly, okay, he kind of already is. He's like almost 40, so he is kind of elderly. But anyways, man, how is he gonna do mono with people, or how are people gonna do it to him? Ooh, I don't know. You're gonna have to ask him, Shane. You're in for it, buddy. Anyways, but that's something that's a part of Filipino culture. When they see someone that's old, when a person sees someone that's older than them, they touch their right hand to their forehead as a sign of respect. I asked around and I asked a lot of different friends what other people do in their own cultures. I did read about some stuff, but I also just wanted to have firsthand experience. I was talking to one of my friends who is of Mexican descent. It didn't seem like they had any type of particular gesture like they had in Indian or Filipino culture. It's more so just, showing overall respect and, a hug and maybe a kiss on the cheek, as a sign of respect for someone that's older than them. In Ukrainian culture, I have a good friend that lives in the Ukraine. He mentioned a lot of this general common courtesy stuff. For example, if you're on a subway, a train, a plane, whatever, just some type of public transport, you always give up your seat for an elderly person. That should just be common courtesy across the board. I mean, I that should be what we're doing in the United States too. I certainly do that. I think most people do, but not all people certainly are losing that politeness about them. But a lot of just common courtesy stuff more so in the Ukraine. One thing my friend also mentioned was just the absence of hollow jokes. Like, for example, in America, like you can kind of joke around with your parents a little bit, even say some, dirty jokes here and there, especially when you become more of an adult. That can be commonplace, but in other countries like the Ukraine, that's not so much common. It's not like, you can, if you're an adult, for example, in your 20s, that you can just go up to your parents and, make certain jokes. It's just not common like it is in the United States and not accepted. So that's really an interesting take on things. I know throughout a lot of the cultures, whether it's Asian culture, Latino culture, or, a lot of cultures just outside of the United States, you know, disrespecting or talking back or questioning the elderly, your parents or grandparents, whoever it may be, it's really forbidden in a lot of senses. Like, for example, in the United States, if you disagree with your parents, it's almost like your duty to speak up, especially as you become more of a teenager and an adult. That's not so much common outside of the US. To an extent, that can be a good thing. I think you should, to a certain degree, show respect, but you can also show respect while also disagreeing, especially if what someone is doing is completely against your morals. Whether they're older than you or not should not be of importance. But again, outside of US culture, that's just how it is. And I know growing up as an Indian kid, I certainly experienced that. Now that I'm an adult, um, and also an adult that grew up in the United States, I really don't just show blind respect to my parents. Certainly, I will show the respect they deserve, but I won't hesitate to question them or argue with them if I feel they're doing something wrong and something that's I feel maybe dishonest or immoral. I mean, my parents are very highly moral people. I'm not trying to bash them or anything, but I will certainly not hesitate to disagree with them when they do something basically that I disagree with. I know in a lot of other Asian cultures, for example, Japan, Korea, bowing is very common, and there's I think different types of bowings. Like sometimes you get down on your knees and kind of bow your head to the floor. Other times it's just more of a formal, quick bow like this. I think that's common in Japanese culture, but just bowing in general across the globe is common in many different countries. So, that's just some of my take on it. Throughout various different countries and cultures around the world, they have other different ways of showing respect to the elderly. And I just wanted people to become more mindful of that, especially if they're going to travel outside of the land. Now, let's say you live in the United States, but you are marrying someone from a foreign land. And let's say you have to travel across seas to meet their parents for the first time, or maybe they even just live in the US, whatever it may be. Just be mindful that you may want to kind of educate yourself on some of their customs to make yourself look a little better and also show the proper respect that they deserve. I'm not saying you have to change completely who you are, disavow your own morals or your own beliefs in life, but also become more mindful of what other cultures do in those instances. I think it's great in helping you grow as a person. It's great to learn other cultures and other beliefs. And if you're a traveler like me, it's very important, especially knowing the laws. Hey, some different countries have crazy laws, and I know it's impossible to learn all of them, but also understand the justice system is a lot different in other countries. And you may face justice in a totally different way than you would here in the US. Just my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you learned something. And I hope that you do become more mindful of other cultures, especially if you're going to be traveling a lot, especially if you're going to marry someone of a different culture. And just know that two cultures can live cohesively together and coexist in a peaceful manner. It doesn't have to be friction, but certainly learning and educating yourself is an important thing. I'm actually making this video at an opportune time. My wife and I are actually leaving for Europe tomorrow, so we are going to be abroad for a while. We are really looking forward to it. And we also wanted to just give our perspective from people who have lived, throughout different cultures and ethnicities. Myself being Indian, Shane is, some percentage of Filipino. I have no clue. I forgot what he told me. I think it's a fourth. But yeah, he is Filipino despite, his pigmentation. I still have my doubts. Okay, I'm just kidding, bud. Anyways, thank you for watching our video. Shane and Ankit always say thank you. And please subscribe to our videos so you can, and also you can get notifications of any further videos we do. I hope you've been enjoying them. Please comment below for any questions you may have, and I hope you enjoyed our little road through the cultural perspectives.